Bullshit.
It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm your host, Dave Mastovich. Our guest today is Ed Piskor, who is an author, designer, comic book creator, journalist, and creative jewel for the city of Pittsburgh and the region of Pittsburgh. He grew up in Homestead, PA, and this show is about leadership and communication and about highlighting the successes in this great region of Pittsburgh. Ed, I'm not sure enough people know about what all you've done, and it's really exciting to hear what you told us in episode 1, and we're going to hear more here in episode 2. You've got the Hip Hop Family Tree, volumes 1, 2, and 3. You're about to release volume 4, and we're going to get into all of that, but I do want to talk about something you touched on at the tail end of episode 1. You grew up in Homestead. You talked about some gang situations and so forth. Tell us about a learning experience when maybe you were a little bit of the BSer and you had to realize that you had to change. So we kind of ask our guests to be vulnerable because it helps our listeners to hear when a guest looked back and thought they might have been guilty of some BS. What did they learn from it, and how can the audience learn?
Well, here's the thing. Like growing up in those situations, I lived in basically an all-black neighborhood, and just by virtue of that, like I just felt a little different, because I sort of saw what my friends went through, all that kind of thing. In that area that I came from, there were murders around my house a lot. Like before we moved out of there, there were murders, but shootings. Like there were like 5 shootings that happened there, and like 2 or 3 of those were murders. And it scared the heck out of me. Like I wasn't bragging about, like all my friends would like at school the next day, they would be like, "Oh no, he definitely had a Glock. No man, it was a Desert Eagle." And I'm like just scared out of my mind. I'm like, I don't even want to be here. I just want to be home, and I want to have the doors locked and not really mess around because it really was this like ping pong thing where it's like people would come to our neighborhood, kill somebody. Then dudes from our neighborhood would go somewhere, kill somebody. And by virtue of that, I'm sure I have PTSD. Like, I'm very sure. I developed like a stutter when I was a kid, and I know it was from just being like essentially shell-shocked. But here's the thing, because that stuff was important for me to just kind of nerd out in my own space and draw a lot. Another thing, like I was a pretty sick boy, and would miss like say 40 days of school, like every year at least. And personally, my goal was like, if I can't kind of make it out of the house to go to school, it's like I have to draw like 20 pages in a sketchbook. Like that's would be how I spent my time. And truthfully, I hated school. I hated being told what to do. I'm a very curious person by nature, and that has served me extremely well because I love learning and I intend on doing that forever. But if you tell me what to learn, I have a problem. And I think that these were skills that just kind of developed. And I call them skills because you have to be a self-starter. Like if you're gonna endeavor to kind of be your own boss, make your own way in this world, you have to get yourself up in the morning and like do stuff. I'll be honest, I can't think of a specific moment where I'm like bullshit or like faking it to make it kind of thing. I'm sure it's existed, but the other important thing that I think is a little bit valuable and almost necessary for certainly a creative person is if you have a creative skill set and it's tangible, like people respond to it. If you have maybe 10% of delusion in there, it's extremely valuable because that's innovation. Like you get to be an innovator in that way where you get to make something that you can't find on the shelf or on TV or something, like, because it doesn't exist. So delusionally, you have the entire span of human culture where this thing didn't exist. So you have to be slightly delusional to like go full in and make this thing. But if you have that skill set behind the delusion, awesome. The problem is in our culture right now, in like the reality TV kind of culture where it's like we kind of exploit like goofy people on American Idol.
I call it fake reality.
They're like pinning red on delusion, and the talent is maybe the 10% on like the goofy people that they kind of kick off. I don't watch this stuff, but I know how it works.
Yeah. It's very true.
Yeah. So it's like
really interesting.
If you have the talent, a slight bit of delusion is going to set you apart, and you're going to make something probably pretty freaking cool.
And let's talk creative process. And I want to just see if anything happens that you can help me out with, because whenever I'm under a writing deadline, like if I write naturally, like my best writing happens, and I become a little delusional too, because sometimes I have to throw it away. But when I'm drinking and I write, I write some kick-ass shit, but I also write some shitty shit. So I have to be able to throw away the stuff. But when I'm normal, I don't drink during the day. So when I'm at work trying to write, writing for clients is not a problem. I love that. I can figure out slogans and everything. But when I have to write something like my column or my books, I tend to... if I do it in that natural format, I'm great. But when I feel like I'm under a deadline, I become ornery, and Suzanne's going to laugh. I become bitchy. So tell me about your creative process. How do you avoid that kind of thing where you get into a writer's block or a sketcher's block?
The thoughts of burning out or having a block never enter my mind. I'm just like on this road moving forward. And it's at this point, I've been making comics professionally since I was 21 years old. That's sort of how I've been able to live. And like I said, I would strike out and take a gamble, and it would fail. And then I would end up back in mom's house for like a year till I got my bread back up, go back out, do some stuff, and fail. And I love failure is awesome because it's like, at least you're taking a chance, and you can calibrate and figure out like, okay, man, like I got a lot of education like in that space. I put out the hip hop stuff 2 pages a week every Tuesday for 4.5 years. In that time, I traveled the world. I went to Korea, Denmark like 4 times, Norway, Germany.
Work related or for pleasure?
It's all the same to me, man. Is what I'm saying. Like
you gotta change your mindset, Dave. Come
I don't.
on.
Like,
That's what I'm hearing.
No. I'm not casting any kind of. But this is fun to me. Like whenever I hang out with, I call them civilian friends.
I think that's us.
No. I just don't want to say extremely hot chicks. I'm trying to be nice.
It is you guys. See, it is Shelby and Suzanne.
Man, don't make me put my foot in my mouth. You girls are very beautiful. But they'll ask like, well, okay, so what do you do for fun? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like if you came to my house, it's a comic book making factory where I invite all. Pittsburgh's cheap cost of living has created a situation where there are a lot of good artists who live here, and some of the best people in the comics business live here in Pittsburgh. And rather than just be hermits, like I have like 4 drafting tables at my apartment. Wow. People come through constantly. It's like a revolving door of like creatives, and the world I've created for myself is like maximum efficiency work-wise, and I maintain my socialization we can say shit.
Exactly.
By just having people coming through work. So like the old square.
Where are you based out of now? Because you grew up in Homestead.
Munhall, not far
Okay.
from Homestead, actually. The old square married dudes will come at like 9 a.m. Sometimes when I'm sleeping,
They're the old square married dudes.
Yeah, because they'll come from like 9 to 5, and then like when the wife gets home, they'll like leave to have dinner and do like married shit. And then
shit.
I have a couple hours to myself to kind of like maybe get some food, and then the nocturnal creatures would come over.
That's
The freaks come out at night.
And then
Freaks
so
come out at night.
essentially, I put in 2 8-hour days every day, and sleep for 8 hours, and that's the deal. I make sure to I get my 10,000 steps in. I go for a 4.5 mile walk or run, depending on how freaking hot it is.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be turning a Jabba the Hutt or something like that. Like I'm maintaining my health, but I'm a comic maker. I didn't get into this game to not do it, and now I have my like wedge in by being a New York Times bestseller. So like other publishers, like I have a lot of opportunity, and I'm about that idea of like making hay while the sun is shining, but I kind of intend to keep the sun shining.
Yeah.
I'm one of my favorite things. I'm an inspiration junkie. I need it every day. And one of the things that I recently discovered, because truthfully, I don't watch sports, because I just don't want to indulge in another man's victory. Like I want to have my own victories. But I love the ESPN 30 for 30 series of documentary films. And because it's like, that's the inspiration I need. I need to know that in order to get to be Kobe Bryant, you have to shoot 1,000 jump shots every day before practice starts. Like before everybody gets there. Like I want to be that kind of guy for my thing. And I don't see myself ever relax. I can't have enough money to ever relax and stop, like.
See, I don't have to change.
even if it like takes years off my life, like even if like I don't get to be 80 years old or something, I have to, like, this is just the pace that I'm comfortable with, and it's fun.
You're a very disciplined free spirit. It's really interesting.
That's why he and I connected.
It's very interesting.
You can be crazy and still be disciplined.
That's a big compliment. I appreciate that, because I never thought about it that way. But it's true, because I will look somebody in the eye and be like, fuck you. But like I could be the dude with tattoos on his hands if I because it's like I'm not gonna have to go back to working at Shop and Save or something like that.
Yeah.
That's Ed Piskor, and we're going to get into all kinds of stuff. One thing for sure is we're going to talk about how Pittsburgh is a hotbed for hip-hop, but we got to pay some bills. Listeners of the No BS Marketing Show, Audible's offering a free download with a 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Try a book like The Everything Store, Jeff Bezos and the Age of Amazon. That's the one I'm listening to now. You can download it for free today. Go to audibletrial.com/nobs. Again, that's audibletrial.com/nobs for your free audiobook. And Suzanne, you notice I've been carrying this Yeti around.
Yes.
It's fantastic, 20-ounce tumbler or whatever.
Are we doing a Yeti commercial
It's
now,
Dawn's
too?
Appliance, multiple locations in the Pittsburgh region. Dawn's Appliance. We're with Ed Piskor on the No BS Marketing Show. I'm your host, Dave Mastovich. The show's about leadership and communication, and it's about some of Pittsburgh's hopefully not hidden jewels, and Ed is one of those. He's got the Hip Hop Family Tree Volumes 1, 2, and 3. Volume 4 is coming out soon. We basically met through me stumbling across Volume 1, bought it, loved it, bought Volume 2, Volume 3, going to be getting Volume 4. Ed, when we were talking before the show, we could have kept going for hours. We'd have never got to actually tape the show. We were agreeing about how Pittsburgh has this hip-hop. It's a hotbed for hip-hop that a lot of people probably don't even realize. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
Well, the stuff that is on the surface, of course, it would be like Wiz Khalifa, Mac Miller. But hip-hop, we're talking about the 5 elements. Graffiti, breakdance, DJ, rap, and just kind of style stuff. That is an important part of just the hip-hop, the Pittsburgh urban vibe. And when I was a kid, I tried my damnedest be a solid graffiti artist in town with the other people doing stuff. And I quickly realized that I'm just a nerdy guy and I don't have enough kind of machismo to be in that world, because it's violent. Like I'm just, it's too macho. Like guys beat each other up on the train tracks, and so it's like there's no almost no incentive in a way, because it's like, the cops will be after you. It doesn't impress your girlfriend. And then you have these other graffiti guys who, if you accidentally go over one of their things a little bit, you're their enemy for life. But that exists in Pittsburgh. It's kind of like an underground thing, but you could go down to the jail trail and you see a bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. You could go down to the jail trail running and just see people like flat out doing this stuff, hundreds of feet from the county jail, which I love. That's extremely kind of punk rock, and like
latest news is former Steeler Baron Batch was arrested for his graffiti.
Really?
Yes. He did some graffiti on one of the trails, and he got arrested for it.
Respect.
And he stands behind it. He's not apologizing. That's his statement. He's saying, that's my art.
And
he's not apologizing.
And they said, when you abuse someone else's property, that's breaking the law. So they're both right.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. But, like hip hop, it's not about backing down, and you got to own it. I hang out with like the coolest group, breakdance group in town, the Get Down gang. And there's jams that go on all the time. A guy named Paradise Gray, who was in an extremely influential group called X Clan, just lives over on the north side.
We had Nick Paradise from Kennywood here on the last week's show. He's a great PR director.
But not the same guy.
Yeah, sure.
Not the same guy.
Yeah, no, you see Paradise, you'll know it, because he's got like a salt and pepper kind of dreadlocked beard that's down to like his knees.
Nice.
He's a really cool cat, and he ran. If you're a fan of hip hop, like you've heard the Latin Quarter. Like he ran Latin Quarter. Like he was the dude who put that together and kind of managed it. So he gave like the second generation of guys their start. Biz Markie and Rakim and Eric B and LL Cool J like really became LL Cool J there. Like that guy's here in Pittsburgh, cooling out. Pittsburgh's so cheap to live that, like, I hate saying it a lot, especially if, like, a lot of tech people like listen. Like, I don't want them to boost up prices too much before I buy the big house that I want with an in-ground pool. Like that could happen after, but I got to get my crib first.
Exactly.
The No BS Marketing Podcast with Dave Mastovich is brought to you by Mass Solutions. Put our 3-step No BS process to work for you. Visit masssolutions.biz today to take your marketing to another level. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.
Hey, touch on again, because I'm going to guess most people don't realize the pure definition of hip hop and the 5 elements.
Well, like the pure definition, it's like this thing with that is liquid. It's this polymorphous thing. But we could say that what falls under the umbrella, like I said earlier, it's like the dance, which is mostly break dancing, but then there's popping and locking and that kind of swag. DJing, MCing, graffiti falls under that. And then just like there's a style component that is hip hop, and you sort of know it when you see it. When you see Allen Iverson, you sort of know it.
Mm-hmm. And in episode 1, you talked about, you wouldn't name names, which is classy, but a billionaire actually reached out to tell you they liked your work, and you did mention specifically Ice Cube tweeting about him meeting Dr. Dre, and he took ownership, saying, hey, check out how I met Dr. Dre, and had the link to your book. So you're getting a lot of credibility. In the first episode, we talked about how this is history of hip-hop, and not one person has come up to say that you were inaccurate, which gives you tremendous credibility. I'm going to recap first volume, Hip Hop Family Tree Volume 1 is Grandmaster Flash on the cover, and it's 78, 79 through 81.
Yeah.
Volume 2 has African Bambaataa on the cover, and it's 81 through 83. Volume 3 has Run DMC, it's 83 and 84. And then Volume 4 is coming out in August, and it looks a little bit different, looks a little prettier. Tell us about that.
Well, there were always females early on in hip hop, of course, but the people who got sort of the backing from the labels in the biggest ways were all males. 84, 85, we're starting to get into a more kind of democratized era in a way where there's a lot of badass ladies who are coming through. So I have a strip in there about how Salt and Pepper got together, right? So it's like it felt only right to put them on the cover because they are so strong, and that's an era where like Roxanne Shante, who's personally one of my favorite MCs, period, where she's like really like coming into her own. So it's becoming, it's never been equal in terms of the amount of performers being like men and women. It's never been that. But at least we're getting like the all-star girls are showing up in their most powerful forms. So I wanted to kind of illustrate that a little bit on the cover. So I had to put Salt and Pepper on there.
Which volume does MC Light get mentioned in?
I think she's not in this yet because she comes after. Like her inspirations were like Salt and Pepper. She'll be maybe volume 6, maybe. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like this might be my life's work throughout my career, but that doesn't mean that I'll just like do it every year. So I'm exploring some other ideas right this minute. But I'll always come back to this just because it's so fun. And I sold this to be a TV show not too long ago. And that's being developed and all that stuff now. And like sort of the model for cartoonists, it seems that the what you want to do is like you have the show happen, and that becomes a 30-minute to 1 hour commercial for your books. That guy Robert Kirkman, who's the creator of Walking Dead, the writer. That seems to be sort of how it works. I mean, they give you jobs, and they he's when I see the credits, I see his name as writer, so he gets a different kind of income stream or whatever. But when my book hit the New York Times bestseller list, it was in like the 7th place, and out of the 10, there were 5 Walking Dead books in the New York Times top 10. So it's like, okay, that's how that's probably the
and
best.
And you have
thing.
sold the show? Or
it's being developed. Like I was just out in LA a month ago.
So it will actually be like an animated show or a cartoon type show, or will there be...
Leaning towards that.
I think that'd be the best route.
Yeah, leaning towards that. It's being developed, and I was out there in LA hanging out with the writer and trying to just come up with some spiritual, like think tank stuff, like kind of hanging out in a space like this and just like kind of recalling our childhoods in a way where it's like, remember, like there was a guy who, like one of the things was that we brought up was like, remember, like the worst thing that you could ever hear walking down the street is if somebody's coming by you and they go, oh, what size shoe you wear? Because if you say the wrong thing, you're getting popped in the eye.
Exactly.
And your shoes are getting taken. So it's like there's 2 answers. You tell the size or whatever. You try to build rapport, like as we naturally are wont to do, and then you get popped in the eye. But the correct answer is, you got punch a dude in the nose or whatever. So it's like that hasn't been in pop culture in a significant way. So it's like that's the kind of stuff that I would like to, that we would talk about whenever I was out there in LA, to try to kind of imbue the thing with some like real spirit of some stuff that like a lot of people know about but has never been expressed through pop culture. Kind of like, like that was the value of like In Living Color, where there would be like, Miss Benita Betrayal, who's like the lady in the projects, who's like, oh, hey, how you doing? Talking to the camera, talking to the viewer, and then she would see it would be this like one woman show where she would see this person over to the side, wave to them, say hi to them, and then tell you about like their dark secret and cap it off with, I'm not one to gossip, so you ain't heard that from me. There were 4 ladies on my street growing up who were that lady.
On their front porch.
Totally.
Yep. Talk about the paper and the production, and how do you actually
That paper's like butter, man.
how do you actually produce it? And you had done the 5,000, then you went to 15,000. Talk about all that stuff.
Yeah, well, when I put this out, now when I got the offer for the TV show, all that stuff, I got that before I even had a book. I was doing the strip for 6 months. In that time as well, like every publisher said hi to me and started to court me a little bit. And I decided like, well, maybe I go with a New York publisher, like a proper like Random House type publisher. And I got some agents and stuff to deal with those kind of treacherous waters for me. And I frankly, because of ego and stuff, I didn't want to answer any of the questions that these old crusty like white guy editors were asking of me about like, who are you? Like what right do you have to make this kind of comic? And they also, like the New York publishers, they would want me to make something that would be like, take hip hop from Cool DJ Herc from 1975 to like the death of Tupac in like 200 pages. I was not interested in that. I wanted something extremely comprehensive. Having all these publishers interested, you get to a position where you could start making some demands about what you want the thing to be. In this world that we live in now, where everybody's starting to like live a little bit more pared down in terms of like the stuff they have, because everything exists digitally. We have Netflix, we have Audible, which I indulge in quite regularly while working. There are digital comics. So you got to create, like if you're going to chop down trees and you're going to make books, you got to make the best freaking books you can that have a tactile experience that creates a whole. Like it can't be, a lot of comics publishers, they see their business as like selling stories, but Fantagraphics, the publisher that I chose, which is like the best publisher in comics in terms of quality of content and book design, they never said no to any of my crazy ideas and demands. This book is atypical in terms of its format because it's a giant over every other book that comes out whenever a new volume of my thing comes out.
I got to give a shout out to a guy by the name of Ron Paglia that Suzanne and I both know. And he was a big newspaper guy. And I would say to him when I was doing an annual report for this one company we worked for, I would say, I want this to be a different size. He goes, well, we'll bastard size it. And I said, I don't even know what the hell that means. But apparently in the newspaper industry, when it's the giant size, they call it bastard size. So that's why I referenced that in the first episode. And what are the actual dimensions of that?
It's like 9 by 13.
Yeah.
So it's completely different. It's bigger than anything you see. How did you select the paper? Because Suzanne and I were talking about this. I can remember that kind of paper from collecting comic books. And in the 60s, there was this paper that had that feel to it. And then other than that, I guess I would say sort of like some journals have that weird feel to it. Wouldn't you agree, Suze?
I think this is it feels like a richer paper. It's beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Where'd you find it? What made you think of that?
And the dot print too. Like,
yeah.
It's so beautifully done.
I feel like that kind of dot printing aesthetic, I think that Pittsburgh factors into that in a big way because of Andy Warhol and being a kind of, a big promoter of the pop art movement.
Look who that is there.
And, making us aware of Liechtenstein and stuff in a civic way, in a Pittsburgh way. Like my mom had like Liechtenstein shirts and stuff. So it's like, we've seen that imagery so much that it's like those dots are like implanted. Like you go down to a Lawrenceville Halloween party, you see like 10 girls dress up like a Liechtenstein kind of costume. Yes. So that's a Pittsburgh flavor that's kind of not talked about too much. But like the paper was crucial because I wanted this comic to look like it was ripped from the time period that I'm talking about. So another publisher sent me a copy of a book that they put together, and they were like, we're thinking this kind of paper, but if you take a look at my stuff, like there's like this like yellowed kind of antique degenerative kind of thing that I do to the paper. They wanted me to drop that out if they publish it. So they wanted to kind of keep the dots and stuff, but they wanted to drop out the paper, which
They wanted to make it brighter.
Yeah, which would destroy the illusion.
What you did.
So what I did was I took that book that they sent me and I ripped the pages out.
I was thinking in my head that's what he did.
And I
mailed it to your publisher.
I sent it to Fantagraphics and I said, "Do you think we could use something like this?" They're like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And then I took it upon myself to send these swatches to the print houses that I know publish the books in China, because like in order to do a color book, you have to outsource. Like the book would be $75.
And how much are they, Ed?
Like $27
I
or
think
something.
they were 27. Yeah. So Ed, I didn't ask this, and we then have to get into one of our fun pop culture things is, but did your parents listen to hip hop?
Not really, but the first rap songs that I've ever heard were from their collection, because they had these disco compilations, and on the disco compilation, the first song on one of the records was Curtis Blows the Brakes, and the Shaka Khan song that had Melly Mel.
Feel For You?
No.
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Shaka Khan.
Yeah. That's Melly Mel.
Yeah.
So those records were on these things, but they didn't listen to this stuff. But you couldn't escape it in Homestead in 1987 because people had the boxes walking up and down the street, and we would play at the playground, and when dudes were playing basketball, and the box would be there. So it was part of the air.
Everybody has to check these out. They're I'd say about an inch thick. So it's not, I want to make sure they understand it's not your traditional comic book that's a 1/4 inch thick.
It's like a collector's item.
It's a collector's item.
Beautiful. They're beautiful.
I have 3 of them, and I'm going to get the 4th one. Mike Gaddy saw mine and bought Samantha, his wife, one of them, and he's going to buy others. They're just excellent. We need to get them. It's Ed Piskor. Ed, it's time to keep calm and hit the bullseye. I'll ask you to choose between 2 marketing or messaging classics. You tell me which one you like more and why, but you only have a few seconds to choose. And hit the bullseye. You ready?
It's real early in the day for me, but I'll do my best.
Progressive's Flow or Jake from State Farm?
I don't even know what that means.
Oh, I love this guy.
What is that?
He doesn't watch TV.
I don't watch TV.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so Progressive's Flow.
I mean, I know what State
Jake.
Farm is, but...
Yeah. That makes it work.
My landlord
right
is a State Farm guy.
All right, that makes it worth right there. We'll just go right into the next one. Okay. This was recently in the news with a tie to Pittsburgh. KRS-One or LL Cool J? You familiar with what happened when KRS-One was in Pittsburgh? And,
Oh,
right. Yeah.
And he unintentionally dissed LL. And
yes.
Then he apologized to him.
Yes.
Around the same time. LL's a little bit earlier, right? No, they're probably close to the same.
LL's a little earlier on Wax. I'm going to say LL just because he's got more danceable joints, and I like to get my heart pounding. I like to get my heart beating.
All right. So then I'm going to go off the reservation on our bullseye, and because the other ones are commercials related, and you might not know any of the commercials. So the 2 songs that are credited with being the earliest ones known by more than a small group are The Message or Rapper's Delight. And we talked a little bit about The Message in episode 1. Give me your take on those 2 and which one you like better.
You have to go with The Message because Rapper's Delight is like the mall version of rap.
And it is.
It's a manufactured group. It's a boy band. It's a manufactured group of guys who were put together by this lady who saw an opportunity in this new kind of musical form. The lyrics were taken from a real hip-hopper named Grandmaster Caz. In fact, his name is spelled in the record because the guy didn't quite realize like what he was probably even saying.
Yes.
That's goofy. It's like you can't compare the 2. Like it would be a conversation if it was between Planet Rock and The Message, which I would still go with The Message because that electro stuff, that ain't my taste really.
Okay.
But those are closer cousins than The Message. If anybody says The Message, they're corny. Like over, I mean, not Rapper's Delight. Rapper's Delight over the Message. Yeah, they're cornballs.
That mall version is such a great analogy of that, because I never liked Rapper's Delight. All right, I guess
here's the thing. I do like it, but like the Message is better. And
well, it's what you said.
Corny.
I don't dislike Rapper's Delight, but it's poppy.
Yeah,
it's poppy. All right, so this one's I guess is a pretty common question: Biggie or Tupac?
I'll say Biggie, but I'll also say this: whenever people, and this is an unpopular thing that I'm about to say, when they talk about like top 5 favorite rappers, to me, when Biggie and Tupac are in there, people are just choosing based on emotion rather than a skill. Mm-hmm. You know, like these guys, their careers were cut short, very young, so they probably had the potential to do something great, but I don't think that they're in the top 5 by any stretch.
Who do you put in your 5?
This is a Chris Rock movie.
I don't like. I personally don't like. If I had a gun to my head, I would say you would have to have Melly Mel, Grandmaster Caz, Kool Moe Dee are important. I think Jay-Z is incredibly important. But actually, I'll sacrifice Jay-Z and say Nas and Rakim. Like those will be my 5. And if there were 6, I would say Jay-Z.
Where do you put Eminem?
You know what's crazy? I don't know his records. I don't know his stuff. And Hip Hop Family Tree, I have to illustrate is that I'm no expert by any means. I have a lot of interest, and I know hip hop records like the back of my hand from the earliest days to about 1993. And what the books are is, like I said, in an archaeological way, it's me sharing my discoveries rather than me on top of like a mountain saying like, then this happened, then so-and-so begat so-and-so, like some biblical type shit. I'm just sharing stuff that I discovered. So like, I am not an all-knowing dude, and I don't know Eminem's work almost at all.
And see, that's how I feel like this plays out visually from when you talk about this being going into television development. That's how I see it. Like as a boy, this was his world. Like this is how he broke through. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I think when I say that, a lot of people in a conversation might bring up the word nostalgia, and I push against that a lot, because to me, like nostalgia is like a square old dude who finds something from his youth and then it like brings back memories, and it's like, I never put this down. Yeah. Like this ain't the past for me. Yeah. You know? So like that's like an important distinction that I always have to like put in there because people use that against me. Well, not against me, but they'll bring it up as like they almost poo-poo things, and it's like, no, like I have more comics that look like this than I have comics that look like what's on the rack now. Yeah. And I look at those more than the stuff that comes out now. Mm-hmm.
And nostalgia wouldn't apply to you either, because you're more of a historian and telling the story, because you weren't around in volumes 1 and 2. You weren't even born.
There's this weird, you're right, because it is an incorrect word, but it's the word that's used for, you know, like the people who get like, you know, Warby Parker glasses that look like from the 50s, and then they dress like rockabilly or whatever. Yeah. Like you weren't around for that, but they kind of adopt that avatar or something, you know. But and they'll apply the word nostalgia, but it's like you have to like live through nostalgia. Yeah. Like, so like, I don't know what the word would be for.
I'm vintage.
Yeah, that's good.
Vintage is the other word.
I call that dusty.
I like that better.
Ed, do you have a tool or a tip you'd offer? Well, let's go with a tool, because you've kind of given the tip. Your tip was great about living your passion, and you work 2 8-hour days, but it's like life and fun. So is there a tool you use? Anything you can think about that, how you plan your day, how you do that double shift, how you design, how you do your creative? It could be a software app that you use. It could be a to-do list that you make. Just something that a creative, hugely productive creative person like you, is there anything you can give to our audience that they could possibly apply themselves as a tool?
I think we'll call this a tool, but you could also think of it as a tip in a way. But it's just, you have to have patience. And if you could just like have ease of mind while you're putting stuff together, I think that that's like one of my most valuable skills that has taken me 10 years to develop, because I would always be kind of in a rush. Like I would want, just sort of the way our culture is bred, it's like that instant gratification type culture, which, you know, I'm a part of, but I sort of know bills are going to be paid. Like I know, like on that hierarchy of needs, I'm cool. So it's given me that calmness of mind that the stuff that I've been doing lately is like the best stuff I've ever done. Every week is like the next best couple pages I've drawn or something. And I really credit that to just having an ease of mind and a patience to just kind of like trust myself that things are gonna be cool. But if I can give like one tip, is certainly if there's like younger people checking this out, I think that it's important to just invest your 20s in your hopes and dreams, man. I think it's crucial. Like to me, if like every successful young person I know kind of worked the butt off. And so like to me, it's like if you go down to like South Side, the bar scene, like say maybe 2 times in 1 month, like you're probably just going to have a job rather than like make something or be your own boss, because it's like you're working for the weekend type people. Not to, you know, diss everybody, but I do consider it a diss in a way, because it's like I couldn't live with, when I went to the school for 1 year, I had to get loans to do so. So I was in the red after that year, and I was 19 years old with like $20,000 of debt. And I recognized that it's like, I don't want my life to be this. So I worked the job, and I worked in an environment with 100% of the people in a position above me were stupider than me. And I knew that. And it made me insane. So it's like, okay, I'm paying this stuff back. And, you know, I was about 21 when I paid down that 20,000, and I was at mom's house, and I sucked it up with all my friends dissing me. Why are you at your mom's house? Why are you sleeping in a closet? Like it was a walk-in closet. My head could touch one wall. When I laid on my bed, could touch one wall, and my feet could touch the other. And they would clown me all the time. And I'm just like, dude, I'm working towards something. I'm making something happen. And it was slow going, but I kind of punted my 20s away. The first 5 years of my 20s, and then 25 forward to like where I'm at now, 33. I've only ever done what I wanted to do, you know. But it took like those first couple years of my 20s to just kind of punt those away, forget about it. Don't go out drinking all like every weekend night, you know. Don't spend money like crazy. If your housing situation is not cool, like if your parents don't have the space, if it's not good, freaking go live with like 5 friends, sleep in the living room but just apply yourself if you have some idea, and trust in yourself, and you put in enough time, you put in those 10,000 hours, you might come out in a positive way at the end. But it's an investment that you have to put into yourself. So do that.
Slept in that closet.
I slept in a freaking walk-in closet, man. I
got a story to match that. When I was in grad school, okay, this guy I played high school basketball against and college basketball against ends up going to grad school at the same place as me, but he didn't have a place, and he was 6'7", and I had this 1-bedroom apartment. He goes, I can stay in that closet. And I said, like, Sig, you're 6'7", but you know what? He did what you did. And he stayed in that closet. I said, you can even sleep on the couch. He said, no, I like the closet better.
I know people like that, by the way. Like, because like I'm always going to be poor in my mind in a way. So like I have no problem when we go to events and stuff, kind of putting a couple people in a hotel room. Yeah. That's no problem. And when you find a dude who likes a closet, you always travel with that guy.
Exactly.
Because it's like they're completely out of your space.
Most fun guy I was around, Tom Sigmund, shout out to him. He was, I'm a pretty intense guy, and he was like just so laid back. It was a great combination in grad school, but that's what your story reminded me of.
My roommates are always that too, man. I'm always like, you give me an inch, I'm taking a foot, man. So all my roommates were totally cool with having this much space. Well, I have this much.
And his hands were small for the other guys and big spread for his. That's Ed Piskor. Ed, what I want you to do now is talk through the whole thing, because you also wrote WYSIWYG. Talk through where they can find all this stuff about you. And we'll also put it on the show notes, but let's put it live on the air too.
Yeah, I'll just if you Google Hip Hop Family Tree, all necessary links are going to come up. It's on Amazon. My name is Ed Piskor. You Google my name, all relevant social media comes up. If you're interested in like process stuff, it would be cool to follow me on social media, because like I publish stuff in its between stages, and I actually think that was like a big value to building my audience with this, because there is a hipster culture out there, right? And like the maxim of the hipster is like, I knew it before it was such and such. So like people were seeing my
That's Suzanne and me with music. We say that all the time.
Right. So like people, like I have a big audience of people who watched my comic develop from page one, where I would just like share the sketches from that page. Like I'm not precious with my ideas at all. I'll put them out there immediately, and to some extent, it's bit me in the butt because remember I told you like the New York publishers wanted me to do this kind of like quick book. Like that book exists now, and it came out before my hip hop book. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because it's just easy to like type and write a lot of words and put like maybe one drawing per page than it is to make a comic. So like that came out. I probably did a lot of stuff wrong putting this together, putting my career together, but it's like it's all been a learning thing. And I recently read something that like your full kind of earning potential is between 40 and 60. So it's like, cool, I understand what's happening. I'm learning throughout my 30s. I'm working hard. And when I hit 40, it's like I'm going to be an assassin when it comes to this thing.
Nice.
I'm going to be a ninja.
My biggest takeaway is that, like from a creative standpoint, the patience of creativity. And
You can't be creative on demand. We always talk about that.
And that is what I think you've learned, is like you've taken control of that.
You know, one of the things that sort of taught me that recently, because I kind of exist in my own world and I don't watch TV like veg out stuff. But if something is good and it sort of stood the test of time, it's like, cool, I'm going to check it out. So I was watching, somebody told me about Mad Men, and it was over and that they enjoyed the whole arc of the thing. So I'm checking it out, and I liked it a lot. And I identified with the kind of type A mentality of that world. And like, I don't exactly remember where it happened in the series, but like, you know, they're driving around a riding lawnmower, like in an office like this, cut some dude's toes off. Like this whole thing happens.
Best episode.
And Don Draper gets like questioned. I don't know if it has to do with that. I forget, like I said, but like Draper's like, you know, you're paying these people to not be creative until they come up with the idea, meaning like, you can't force these ideas, you know, like there's a reason why some of your best ideas come in the shower. And it's because you're kind of not forcing it and stuff. So like, why not take some time and kind of enjoy the process of just like, you know, cooking and hearing the sizzle and just like letting things flow that way, or like vacuuming, like just taking care of like everyday things can bring about amazing ideas, or like answers to like important creative challenges that you might have for the day or the week or something. So
true.
And Don Draper, like, you know, we have a marketing firm, and I don't get to smoke cigarettes and drink during regular hours, except for we do shots for the podcast, which we forgot to bring over for you. So sorry.
That's cool. I don't drink. So
the Don Draper was the golden era of just being a complete hedonistic leader of a company.
You know, like we're just an evolved species, right? So like I sort of like the way things are now better, like just like a little bit more inclusive, like just, you know, allowing for like the fact that it's 50-50 in this room might not have been possible in like Draper's era.
Exactly.
And that is just incredibly stupid. Like how much cool stuff was not created. Like it's an impediment to culture on the biggest scale to like keep anybody out of the game, you know? So it's like we're in a good era. Things are moving forward. And then that's going to bring more brain power to stuff so that we can have, you know, a cooler world, a more diverse world with a lot of cool ideas being explored. I don't know. I feel very hopeful.
You're here. Me too.
I hear you. Ed, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think we had a very good discussion.
To our listeners, thanks for joining us for the No BS Marketing Show. Visit boldsolutionsnobs.com for show notes plus additional marketing and messaging resources. Make sure you sign up for light reading. You'll receive valuable strategies every other week to improve your marketing and transform your message. It really is light, intended to be read in 2 minutes or less, and it just might trigger bright ideas for you. To sign up, visit masssolutions.biz. That's B-I-Z. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea, and build your story around the answer. It's all about bold